The alien warlord's laughter echoed across the command deck, a harsh, mechanical rasp that grated through the speakers. You mean to tell me this planet's defense consists of metal tubes that hurl bits of metal through the air? High Marshal Vorik sneered, gesturing to the blurry recon footage. Projectiles. Analog scopes. No active plasma grids. No AI-linked ballistics. Just humans with rifles. The other Dominion commanders chuckled, their plated armor humming with disdain. Vorik leaned forward, tapping his claw against the image of a camouflaged figure barely visible in the tree line. "This is what Earth sent against us," he scoffed. "A fossil with a scope." Silence followed, save for the hum of the Dominion flagship as it floated above the fractured moon of Corvus 9, a strategic outpost recently occupied by human forces. Dominion doctrine called it a soft target. No planetary shielding. No orbital defense grid. Their intelligence deemed it a forward observation post held by less than 24 human personnel, likely special operations, but no threat compared to a full Legion deployment. Vorik turned to his tactical aide. "Send the 39th Infantry Cohort. Sweep the forests. Burn their cover. I want the sniper's skull." Orders relayed through neural comms. In less than an hour, dropships ignited the upper atmosphere. The 39th Cohort descended like a blade. 2,000 Dominion soldiers, war beasts, and recon drones bristling with tech that had subjugated planets in hours. The forest below trembled under the pressure of retro thrusters and kinetic landers. Trees snapped. Soil erupted. The war began with thunder. It ended with whispers. The first casualty was recorded 8 minutes into the operation. A sergeant of the 39th, skull perforated through a slit no larger than a needle's eye. He'd paused for 2 seconds to scan a ridge. Never saw the glint of glass. The second fell 12 seconds later, and the third, moments after that. They weren't grouped. They weren't exposed. They were chosen. Drones searched. Nothing. Bioscanners pinged anomalies, but never twice from the same location. Whatever was out there didn't move like an animal, and it didn't fight like a soldier. No plasma traces. No digital signatures. Just silence and the occasional corpse. Vorik watched through a live feed, fury building. "Where's the return fire? Why haven't we flushed him out?" The tactical officer shifted uneasily. "He's not engaging in patterns. Each kill is isolated, precise. They're strategic. He's hurting us, sir." "Hurting?" Vorik snapped. "Yes, Marshal. He's not just eliminating targets. He's breaking unit cohesion." On the forest floor, chaos bloomed. The 39th Cohort split into fire teams, then into individuals. Confidence fractured. Every tree became a potential threat. Every shadow, a grave. Vorik deployed thermobarics. Set fire to whole sectors. Trees fell. Earth boiled. Still the sniper killed, unhindered. No heat signature ever lingered. No trace of movement beyond what he allowed. It was as if the forest itself had turned on them. Hours passed. Then a full day. The death toll passed 200. Vorik ordered a retreat to base Camp Epsilon. Only half returned. The sniper didn't pursue. He didn't need to. The damage was done. Inside the prefab command dome, Vorik stared at the scorched helmet of one of his commanders, the front cord out cleanly. He'd held that officer in contempt for his arrogance, but he had not deserved to die like livestock. A calm buzzed. One of his lieutenants appeared, blood still smeared on his jaw from a near miss. "We captured footage," the lieutenant said quietly. Vorik turned. The feed played. A single frame. Blurry. A human figure in a ghillie suit. Kneeling. Breathing slow. Rifle steady. Behind the scope, only darkness. "He let us see him," the lieutenant whispered. "What?" Vorik asked. He wanted us to know he was real. For the first time, Vorik felt it. Not anger. Not frustration. Dread. This was no ordinary resistance. This was deliberate warfare waged with ancient tools, wielded by a species that had spent generations perfecting the art of killing without being seen. Dominion soldiers called him a phantom. To Earth, he had another name, Spectre, and he had been sent not to fight a war, but to deliver a message. Vorik understood now. Earth didn't need advanced optics. They had him. Spectre watched from his perch as the Dominion sent in walkers, lumbering quadrupeds, plated in obsidian alloy and bristling with autocannons, stomped through the brush like titans. Their sensors swept in broad arcs, scanning for heat, motion, anything that didn't belong. The aliens had finally grown tired of surgical precision. Now they wanted brute force. He adjusted the dial on his optic. The walkers were powerful, but their operators were not. Inside each armored shell sat a single pilot, and in every design Earth had seen, there was a flaw, a faintly shielded visual port near the cranial turret. It was meant for manual override, a redundancy, a weakness. Spectre watched one stomp to a halt below. He counted heartbeats. 4, 5, 6. He fired once. The walker twitched, paused, and collapsed sideways. The operator's brain stem had liquefied before his finger ever touched the alarm. The second walker began to turn, autocannons spinning up. Spectre was already gone. He moved low and fast, sliding through brush so thick it swallowed light. Mud clung to his elbows. His rifle dragged a trench behind him. He didn't stop until he reached the second firing point, a shallow depression beneath a fallen log. He set the bipod gently, as if tucking in a child. The walker loomed in his crosshairs now, confused, flailing its optics. The pilot had no target, no direction, just death, descending like a whisper from the trees. Another shot, another kill. The Dominion's last assault team didn't even make it out of their dropship. Spectre didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He only checked his scope. In orbit, General Vorik ordered the forest burned. Flame jets roared across the canopy, liquefying leaves and flash-charring root systems. The fire lines swept outward like a curtain of annihilation. Birds ignited mid-flight. Trees bled smoke. Even the mud sizzled. But Spectre was already 2 clicks ahead. He'd memorized the Dominion's patterns, fire timing, and sweep protocols. Every step they took, he anticipated. Every move they made, he mirrored or manipulated. Now he sat deep in a cave beneath the hill spine, filtering air through carbon mesh and watching the chaos above through a fiber optic line no thicker than a matchstick. His breathing never changed. Back on Earth, the analyst stared in disbelief at the latest transmission. "He's still active," she whispered. Ortiz crossed his arms. "Of course he is. He's Spectre. He hasn't used a single drone, no satellite uplink, no external surveillance. How's he mapping them?" Ortiz just tapped the side of his temple. Pattern recognition. Intuition. This isn't just a battlefield to him. It's a conversation. A conversation? Yes. Ortiz leaned forward. And the Dominion is talking too loud. The Dominion's ground forces were unraveling. Officers refused to leave their armored transports. Patrols moved in tight clusters, which only made them easier targets. A single round could drop a sergeant, and half the platoon would scatter into the trees. They began setting traps. Dozens of them. Pressure mines, tripwires, pulsar nets. Anything to force their invisible enemy into revealing himself. But Spectre never walked forward. He moved sideways. Always sideways. Never predictable. Never trackable. He didn't avoid their traps. He repurposed them. One Dominion scout team found their own Claymore mine rigged in reverse, triggered by their extraction code. Only 2 survived. They never returned to the field. Another team tripped their own thermal alarm and brought down orbital fire on their own position. Spectre had mirrored their signal tags using scrap code left behind in a disabled compact. General Vorik grew silent. He didn't shout now. He only stared out the viewport of the battlecruiser, watching smoke curl through the clouds of Corvus, 9 like ghost fingers. This isn't just an enemy, he said quietly. This is a curse. But curses aren't real. Spectre was. A week passed. Then two. The Dominion stopped sending elite troops. They sent machines. Kill drones by the hundreds. They swarmed the forest like locusts, grinding through branches and chewing up earth with laser-fed rotors. Spectre let them. He led them in circles. He herded them like cattle. He lured them toward a cragged pass, marked with iron-rich stone that distorted their sensors. There, he planted 3 stolen Dominion energy cores, unstable, volatile, and perfectly rigged. He fired once from 500 meters. The mountainside bloomed into fire. The blast vaporized 70 drones, toppled half the ridge, and sent Dominion communications into chaos. For the first time since landing on Corvus, 9 Dominion commanders requested evacuation authorization. It was denied. They were told to contain the human. Spectre left his calling card at the edge of the blast crater. A small strip of canvas, scorched at the edge, nailed into the rock. Burned onto it with a lighter and grease. Send more. Back on Earth, the analyst whispered to Ortiz. He's taunting them. Ortiz didn't answer. He just studied the footage. There was something in Spectre's movement, in his strategy, that felt like music, deliberate, rhythmic, dangerous, like the slow drumbeat before a kill. He's not just taunting them, Ortiz said. He's priming them. He wants their commander down there. He wants Vorik himself. The analyst blinked. Why? Ortiz's eyes darkened. Because Spectre doesn't finish fights. He ends wars. Far below, in the growing darkness of the ruined forest, Spectre watched new dropships streak through the clouds. He adjusted his pack. His breath was calm. They were finally taking him seriously. And that was their last mistake. Night fell hard across Corvus. 9, smothering the shattered forest beneath a ceiling of smoke and ash. In the charred husks of trees and the blackened veins of craters, the world whispered its ruin. And in that ruin, something moved. Vorik stepped onto the planet's surface. The Dominion Supreme Commander, armored in an adaptive exoshell gilded with rank sigils and blood-plated pauldrons, descended with 2,000 soldiers and a vow forged in fire. No more games. He was done with recon sweeps and indirect conflict. This was not war. This was humiliation. His empire could not afford another shadow defeat. Dominion morale across the outer sectors had already begun to fracture, and all of it, every crack, every whisper of fear, traced back to a single human sniper. A myth, an echo, a ghost. No longer. Vorik's boots crunched over scorched soil as he walked into the silent heart of no man's land. His vanguard formed concentric rings around him, scanning constantly. Pulse shields shimmered, drone countermeasures flickered, but the general's gaze never left the forest ahead. He didn't need sensors. He could feel the pressure, like being watched through a keyhole in a locked room. Spectre, he said into the dark, voice amplified, steady. I am here. Come and die. There was no reply. Not right away. High above, in the shattered skeleton of a tree untouched by fire, Spectre lay prone. He'd been waiting 3 days. Without food, without sleep, feeding on willpower, silence, and the cool discipline of his training. He watched Vorik through a lens calibrated to read vein dilation. The Dominion's champion had come, and he'd brought his pride with him. Spectre shifted minutely, dialing wind, humidity. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down like gravity. One shot, one breath, one truth. But he didn't fire. Not yet. Killing Vorik now would create a martyr. It would galvanize the Dominion, paint Spectre as an assassin rather than a soldier. No, he needed the kill to mean something bigger. A symbol, a collapse, a final, surgical strike, not just of body, but of command. So he waited. Vorik advanced deeper into the forest. Every 50 meters, a drone would scan. Every 100, his soldiers deployed micro-turrets. Every step, another insult. We are not afraid. But fear wasn't the tool Spectre needed. He needed doubt. It came with the first scream. A soldier near the rear disappeared into the undergrowth without a sound. His scanner dropped flatlined. Comm stuttered. When they reached his last location, they found only a helmet, upside down, resting on a tree branch, as if gently placed. The second man vanished in plain sight. One moment standing, next moment gone. No explosion, no blood, just silence. Vorik's lieutenant tightened the perimeter. The general ordered full sensor suite deployment. What they got was static. Jamming signals flooded the local field, scrambling thermal reads and audio filters. For 20 minutes, nothing moved. The trees breathed. The wind shifted. Every soldier began to wonder if they were standing on someone's grave. Then the corpses started to fall. From the trees. From the canopy. Dangling by their belts. Their chests hollowed by precisely fired rounds. Each body had a tag hung around the neck. Found you. Too late. Coming closer. Vorik finally knew what Spectre was doing. He wasn't just killing. He was erasing morale. The Dominion soldiers started whispering. That Spectre wasn't human. That Earth had bred monsters in laboratories. That they'd been sent into the jaws of a myth. Rumors rippled like cracks in a dam. One officer tried to silence it. A bullet took his voice box. Panic began as a whisper, then a wave. Vorik stood still. Rage carved lines across his face. He activated a direct link to orbit, ordering full-spectrum bombardment. Wipe the grid, he snarled. Flatten this forest. I want nothing left alive. But the grid didn't respond. Spectre had already corrupted their uplink relay. What came next wasn't a blast. It was a flood. Explosives planted in advance reshaped the terrain, collapsing trenches, flipping armored vehicles, swallowing drones and engineered sinkholes. Fire raced across magnesium trails, flaring into blinding arcs. The Dominion's formation unraveled in under 5 minutes. And in the chaos, a whisper spoke behind Vorik. Too loud. The general spun, rifle raised. There was no one there. Only a voice in his calm. Too predictable. Vorik ripped the headset off, heart hammering, eyes scanning the smoke. He couldn't trust any shadow now, any whisper. Spectre had slipped inside his formation, maybe even into his own command squad. The Dominion line shattered. Officers fled. Troopers ran blind into the smoke. Spectre didn't chase. He moved forward, toward Vorik. The general stood alone now, weapon shaking ever so slightly. He backed toward the dropship, eyes darting. The world around him had become enemy territory. Even the air betrayed him. A shape moved at the edge of his vision. He fired. The shape fell, but it wasn't Spectre. It was his second in command. The body hit the ground with a thud. Vorik's breath hitched. And then came the final message, etched into the side of his own discarded helmet. You brought war. I brought silence. The general looked up, and for the first time in his life, Dominion-born and battle-forged, he understood what it was to be hunted by something better. Above him, unseen, Spectre aligned the final shot. But he didn't pull the trigger. Not yet. Let Vorik run. Let him carry the terror back to the stars. Let the rest of the Dominion know. Earth's optics weren't primitive. They were perfect. Vorik staggered onto the evac ramp, his armored hand smeared with ash and blood, neither entirely his. The Dominion gunship hissed close behind him, lifting through char and smoke, engines strained against Corvus 9's gravity. Around him, the few remaining soldiers sat rigid and silent, eyes fixed on nothing, their minds hollowed by what they'd witnessed. Command protocols had collapsed. Discipline had dissolved into a mass retreat. No one said a word, not even to him. The sniper, the human, had done more than kill. He had unmade them, piece by piece, soldier by soldier, confidence by confidence. Spectre hadn't fought a war. He had ended one without permission. As the stars folded around the gunship and it tore into subspace, Vorik found his hands trembling. Just once. He clenched them hard enough to draw blood. That weakness had never existed in him before Corvus 9. Now, it was etched into his bones. Back in Dominion High Command, Vorik stood trial not in a courtroom, but beneath the cold scrutiny of the Hierarch's Council. 17 voices, 13 species, all watching a warrior who had never failed until now. You were given full authority. The central hierarch rasped, tentacles curling with restrained scorn. 2,000 elite soldiers, full-spectrum assets. And yet, one human sniper rendered your command impotent. Vorik met the gaze without flinching. He was not a sniper. He was a doctrine. The room paused. Explain. Another hierarch demanded, tone clipped. Vorik took a breath. We believed humanity's optics were primitive. We believed they relied on outdated projectile weapons. We believed wrong. What we faced on Corvus 9 was not simply a soldier with a rifle. We faced a walking philosophy, one built from centuries of asymmetric warfare, one that does not fear technological inferiority because it thrives within it. One of the hierarchs leaned forward. You were saying a single human, using bullets, overpowered the Dominion's most advanced infantry. Vorik nodded once. He used terrain, fear, patience, timing. We came with machines. He came with silence. We brought pride. He brought precision. Every shot he fired was designed, not just to kill, but to break. He didn't defeat us in combat. He unraveled our ability to believe in victory. A long silence followed. Then the hierarchs ruled. The human specter was to be classified as a Class 7 threat entity. Interstellar bounties were to be placed. Earth would receive a diplomatic warning. Future incursions would be postponed pending psychological analysis. But beneath all that policy, the truth had already sunk in. The Dominion had been outclassed. Word spread, as it always did, through intercepted comms, through deserters' nightmares, through the stories told in dark bars along fringe worlds where soldiers sought drink strong enough to burn the fear away. The sniper who hunted armies. The man who vanished into trees and emerged only to kill. The phantom Earth sent when the galaxy laughed at its weapons. His legend became a weapon of its own. Back on Earth, Spectre, real name classified, returned to the facility beneath the Rockies. No medals, no parades, only debriefings and another file stamped classified. The kind of silence only a ghost could earn. He walked through the corridors unnoticed, a shadow among the living. His face unreadable, his body lean and weathered. But his eyes, those were the eyes of a man who had seen his civilization blink. General Harper met him in the command room, flanked by analysts and AI projections. "We got your report," she said, voice low. "And Dominion chatter confirms everything. You did it." Spectre nodded. "Temporarily." Harper frowned. "You don't think they'll stay down?" "They'll evolve," Spectre said simply. "They always do. But now they'll do it carefully. They thought we were children with toys. Now they know we can cut their throats while they sleep." She watched him for a moment, then dismissed the room. Only the two of them remained. "You did more than kill a general," she said finally. "You changed the narrative. The next time someone calls our weapons primitive, they'll remember Corvus 9. Spectre didn't respond. He just looked out the viewport, down at the mountains. Snow falling in silence. "Why didn't you kill him?" Harper asked. "Vorik, you had the shot. Multiple times. Because now he'll speak louder than his death ever could." She didn't ask more. Some truths were better left unspoken. The months that followed were quieter. No Dominion patrols near human systems. No forward scouting fleets. The Council spun theories. The Navy stood down from high alert. But Earth's intelligence services watched closely. Spectre trained others. Not many. Just enough. One at a time. Silent men and women who learn not just to shoot, but to listen. To become not warriors, but warnings. The Dominion shifted too. Recruitment declined. Internal dissent spiked. And everywhere Vorik went, he was followed by a rumor that a human was watching. That specter never left Corvus 9. That he could step from any shadow and remind them, with a single shot, what silence could do to an empire. But the man himself, he walked the earth like a ghost. No name, no title, only the weight of what he'd done and the silence he left behind. And somewhere, in the mind of every soldier who had ever laughed at human weapons, a single thought remained, carved deep and permanent. Primitive isn't weakness. It's a choice. And when Earth makes that choice, you bleed before you understand why.